Hello everyone, welcome back to Inside Man United. My name is Rowan Brennan. I hope everyone had a good weekend. It was a long weekend here in Ireland, so any Irish people out there watching, I hope you had a nice long weekend and a very happy Halloween. Today's episode, we look at the current malaise going on around Manchester United, which seems to be just going into a deeper and deeper crisis with every passing week, every passing month and every passing game. And we're asking ourselves the question, Erik ten Hag, should he stay? So to begin the video, let's make the case for Erik ten Hag. Now, I'm very much an Erik ten Hag evangelist. I admire his honesty, even if Jadon Sancho doesn't. And I liked a lot of what he did last year. I thought that he didn't really put much wrong in the face of taking over a dumpster fire. Rangnick, for all his faults, nailed it on the head when he said the club needed open heart surgery, needed to get rid of a lot of players, needed to develop a culture. It basically needed to be completely stripped down and rebuilt. The club had just fallen into rack and ruin. And Erik ten Hag was brought in to try and develop a new footballing culture and identity. 2 games in, he abandoned his philosophy because the goalkeeper couldn't play out. He didn't think he had the players in his ranks that could play the football he wanted to play. Disappointing, given that's why he was brought in, but you got to use what you've got. Erik ten Hag, having lost his first 2 games, turned things round for United in a big way, and we went on to go on quite a good winning streak. Erik ten Hag is the quickest manager to get to 20 wins. Should Erik ten Hag win his next game against Fulham, he will be the quickest manager to get to 50 wins ever. That says something, particularly when you've taken over this club in the condition that it was in. That has to mean something. Ten Hag also came in with a lot of egos, a lot of problems within the squad. He managed Ronaldo out of the club, which I think everyone agreed with, given how things were going, the way he wanted to play, and subsequently the way that Ronaldo acted, and the lack of any clubs willing to come in and bring him on board in any of the more notable leagues. His time was up. He had a good final season at United with 18 Premier League goals, albeit in an odd amount of games. It was like Berbatov's kind of golden boot season. It's like you scored most of your goals in 5 games, which isn't overly useful. However, managed him out of the club. Managed our captain out of the club. A problem player that every fan wants to see the back of, regardless of his upturn in fortunes recently. Got rid of him. Ballsy move. Get rid of your captain and drop Ronaldo. First season. Just in the door. That takes balls. And something that I think United wanted to see. This guy wasn't going to be the friend to the best friend to the class like Ollie was trying to be. He brought in a centre half at 5'10" that people were laughing at, turned out to revolutionise our defence. He trained on Luke Shaw to become the best left back in the league last year. Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Diogo Dalot. A right back position was something that we wanted to fix. We were looking at defenders all over the place. Axel Dumfries, Axel Disasi, and a whole host of other right backs. And he trained Wan-Bissaka on to become a very, very key and valuable member of that United defence. Brought in Christian Eriksen from the cold, a player people kind of scratched their heads at and went, really? Would any other top team buy him or bring him in? United didn't have the budget, so he was an astute signing, and for all the criticism you might give Eriksen now, he was brilliant last year and was a very core part of United playing very well. Brought in Casemiro, central defensive midfielder, a position that we have struggled to find someone for 15 years. Owen Hargreaves came in for about 18 months as our CDM. Of course, when we won the Champions League that year, but we didn't have him for long. And before that, our last central defensive midfielder was Roy Keane. So he just did it right. Brought Penny McCarthy in to help the strikers. Rashford had his equal best ever season goals-wise. This is all good stuff. This is all great stuff. A guy who was supposed to steady the ship wasn't just steadying the ship, he was actually turning it around and putting it into a race that we looked like we were able to compete in. We go on a great cup run, we win the League Cup. We get to the FA Cup final. He should have won the Europa League. We beat Barcelona and should have won the Europa League. And we came third in the Premiership. Off the back of a Greenwood scandal, Ronaldo being out the door, dropping our captain, a takeover chaos happening, Casemiro having been banned for 8 games, and a whole host of other players that he wanted to get rid of. This was a very, very impressive first season by Ten Hag. The guy got 17 clean sheets last year. We conceded 43 goals. A big improvement on other seasons. 56 the season previous. And 17 of those 43 goals were conceded in 3 games. The Brentford 4-0, the Man City 6-3, and the Liverpool 5-0. 17 goals in 3 games. So in a 35-game season, we conceded 26 goals. That is championship winning defence. We got the best defence in the league, and our goalkeeper got the Golden Glove. He won 20 games in 27. He was the first manager to get... He was the quickest manager to get to 20 wins. He did it in 27 games. If he beats Fulham, that's 50, the quickest manager to get to 50 wins. You can't sniff at this. He's got an average win percentage of 63% as a first-team manager across Utrecht, Ajax, and now United. 63% win percentage. That is very high. That's title winning. There's a manager that came from the Eredivisie, having taken over an Ajax club that was in free fall, was in very, very poor form, hadn't won the league in quite a while, and goes to winning 2 doubles with them. Playing a brand of football that was the envy of Europe, beating Juventus, Real Madrid, and finally succumbing to a very lucky Spurs in the semi-final of the Champions League. He should have got to the final. This is a guy that knows how to play football. This is a guy with a footballing brain. He was the first manager that United had brought in since Fergie left that was looking to be the best of a new breed. We'd continually chosen managers in the same way that we were choosing strikers. People who had been great were probably past their best, and we were trying to eke out some final performances from them in the heyday of their career. We did it with Van Gaal. We did it with Mourinho. We did it with Rangnick. And then we brought in other managers like Solskjaer and Moyes, who were just simply not up to it. Ten Hag was an appointment that was fresh. It was new. It was the club taking a direction where we wanted a footballing brain, not a spent power looking to regain its former glory, not a former player looking to bring back the good vibes, and not a British manager who was elevated above his rank because he did well at a middling club. This was a guy who was coming in from overseas, wasn't flash, wasn't a big loud personality, was a footballing brain that was coming to bring a footballing ideology into the club. And for the most part, he did it. Erik ten Hag was a revelation last season and everyone was very happy with him. However, things have changed. The case against Erik ten Hag. Second season syndrome is a very real thing. We've seen plenty of managers, players succumb to this. When the pressure is on, when you've set a reasonable or high bar for yourself, for that to then become your baseline is tough. Erik ten Hag achieved what he achieved last season, not playing the type of football he wanted to play, but trying to adapt to the players that he had available. After 2 games last year where we got trounced, there was big question marks over Ten Hag, and he dealt with the pressure well, and he rejigged the team, and we stopped playing out from defence, and we basically reverted back to an ollie ball, soaking up pressure, trying to counter-attack. As an attacking side, United did not create that much last year, and it's something that is carried into this year. Erik ten Hag, while he was able to win football games and build a good defence and try and control football games, we weren't good going forward last year. We needed Marcus Rashford to have his equal best ever season in his 8th season at the club with 17 goals. I might remind people that are still on the Marcus bandwagon, and there are fewer and fewer people on that bandwagon as time goes by. Marcus Rashford has the second highest amount of shots of any player next to Erling Haaland. Yet he misses a majority of them. Marcus Rashford, for all his heroics last year, and he had a good season. It was not a white hot season, which has been described by other channels. It was a good season. It is only the second time in, at the time, 8 years and now 9 years where Marcus Rashford has been in the teens for goals. He's only been in double figures 4 times. The other 2 times were 10 and 11 goals. He's only hit 17 one other time, and that was 4 or 5 seasons ago. Marcus Rashford's best ever season for United was 6th best in the Golden Boot charts, having taken the second most amount of shots. Thank God he was there to get those goals, because we only scored 56 goals last season and he got 17 of them. A third of our goals were scored by one man. Now, Ten Hag did have to face up to the fact of having a team that had just dropped Ronaldo, had Wout Weghorst who couldn't score, Sancho who couldn't score, Anthony Martial who was injured, Anthony who'd just arrived, Greenwood who'd been suspended. And we had to bring in emergency players on loan just to fill gaps where we had injuries. He did very well, but the fact is we did not build a team that was capable of scoring goals. And we didn't build a team that was capable of scoring goals in various areas of the pitch. We were outrageously reliant on Marcus Rashford last year, and had many of our games win 1-0 or win by a single goal. We kept 17 clean sheets last year. That is not a form that is sustainable. Even the very best teams like City and other teams, 17 clean sheets is almost unheard of. And even still, we only still managed third. A manager that did well with the players he had available, but he still abandoned his philosophy. Now it's a results game, and Ten Hag knows that when you're at Manchester United, you need to get results or you'll be out the door quite quickly. We've had plenty of managers lose their job after 1 season. Moyes, Rangnick. We've had plenty of managers lose their job after 2 or 3 seasons. Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer. I can understand why he wanted to take a more pragmatic approach, but the fact is have we sacrificed long-term success for short-term plans and fixes? Because we haven't developed any discernible style of play or attacking impetus, despite him having spent 240 million on 3 attacking players in the shape of Anthony, Mount and Højlund. Last year papered over a lot of cracks that this team has. While we controlled games and didn't concede much, we didn't create a whole lot and we didn't score a whole lot. This is not a high-scoring team. And that form has now continued into this year. Once Marcus's goals have dried up, there are no goals. And we've had to rely on fringe players to bail us out. Scott McTominay with 2 against Brentford. Varane with a Wan-Bissaka cross against Wolves. Dalot against Sheffield United. Our fringe players, people who shouldn't be first teamers or players that have even been sold, rescuing us. Harry Maguire against Copenhagen. Our defenders and defensive-minded players like McTominay and fringe players are the ones bailing us out. Mason Mount, a signing that I don't think any United fan had seen coming or even understood. 60 million on a player we didn't need. He plays as a number 10 or he plays on the left as an attacking winger. We have Marcus Rashford there, we have Garnacho, we have Eriksen who can play 10, and we have Bruno Fernandes. Why do we have him? Now, clearly he wanted to bring him in to replace the legs of Christian Eriksen, whose legs were starting to go and couldn't play 90 minutes. We tried him at number 8 at the beginning of the season. We got absolutely torn apart. And just like last season, as soon as it doesn't work for a couple of games, Ten Hag puts his tails between his legs and decides to completely rejig how we play. Now, he's been forced to rejig how we play due to a massive injury crisis, the likes of which has never been seen at this club. However, you've got a £60 million man that you insisted the club buy, and with Casemiro not being available, Eriksen having injury concerns, Amrabat not being available when he came in, he still can't get a game in midfield. This was your marquee signing of the summer. I've never doubted Ten Hag's decision-making. Even when he does choose, you go, okay, there might be some logic to that. He knows more than I do. I think I know more than most kind of armchair fans because I just follow football so much. I consume football content more than anything. And While I don't know a huge amount, I would consider myself to know more than your average armchair pub fan who watches a few games every year. And I was absolutely bewildered by Ten Hag's approach to the City game. And it screamed to me a man that was under immense pressure, who was just looking towards any player with any kind of form that he thought could rescue some goals. There is no way that a club like Manchester United should have Christian Eriksen, Scott McTominay, Victor Lindelof, Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans starting in a game at home against the treble winners, against one of the most lethal finishers in Europe. You can say, well, injuries, he had to. He didn't have to. His explanations before the game to starting Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans was because it was tactical. I don't understand how that's true. I certainly don't understand, if it is true, how it's valid. I don't like starting Harry on the left. It exposes us. We need a player on the left who can create different angles, which is Johnny Evans. And we think that Harry Maguire is actually pretty decent on the right and he can handle City's press and he'll be good in that position. He's a good right centre half. There is no scenario or situation in which, when Varane is available, that Johnny Evans or Harry Maguire should start ahead of him, especially against Manchester City, when we're not going to have a lot of the ball and we're going to see a lot of that ball coming into our penalty box. There is no way you can justify that decision. And it is decisions like that that have now made United fans scratch their head. There is no way Victor Lindelof, who was even being doubted as a capable custodian of the right-back position when Dalot was going left-back, is now being played at left full-back when we had Reguilon fit. It doesn't make sense. To even the most basic football fan, that doesn't make sense. It screams of a man that is buckling under pressure and making bad decisions through sheer panic. To then have Amrabat and Eriksen anchoring the midfield. Eriksen is a scarecrow when United aren't in possession. Did you see how he stood off Rodri on the D in the box for the third goal? It was inexplicable. If United are not going to have possession, which is going to be guaranteed when you're playing against Manchester City, Christian Eriksen is the wrong tool for the job. But Ten Hag abandoned all reason and sense to put in Eriksen because, despite having played badly in most of the games he's been in this year, he has turned up with moments of magic when we have had the ball. When we are in games where we are chasing a goal and the team is defending and we have opportunities to actually have the ball and develop some patterns of play, Eriksen has shone. But that's because we've had the ball. If you're going to be in a game where you don't have the ball, Eriksen is the wrong player to have on the pitch. You might as well just have 10 men. He is completely ineffective, doesn't track back, doesn't know how to defend, and doesn't like facing his own goal. I think the only logic in it was because we were going to carve out so few chances, and if we were, that he wanted Eriksen being the person delivering the ball. But there's no point sacrificing a man for the majority of the game because he might get 2 or 3 opportunities to swing across in. It doesn't make sense. Bruno Fernandes out in the right is an experiment that has been so monumentally a failure so often. For him to persist with that move on this game didn't make any sense. And for a man that was so concerned with tactics, with his centre-half choices, to play Bruno on the right-wing forward position, all he wants to do is cut back inside because he likes being in the middle. It exposed the entire left side of City's team, our right side, but City's left. And they had joy there all match. Amrabat being taken off at half-time, people thought he might have been injured. Was it because of the yellow card? No, it was tactical, yet again. And he put McTominay in the base of the midfield with Eriksen, and that essentially sealed the game for City. We got completely overrun. Erik ten Hag said we needed to chase the game, we needed more forward play, we needed to have that kind of a decision. No, you didn't. Keep Amrabat. Take off Eriksen. Put in Mejbri. You needed legs and energy and people that were going to harass and chase. Put Bruno in the middle. Put Mount on the right. Put Garnacho or Rashford on the left. And Højlund up front. Not one single decision did I agree with that Erik ten Hag made that day. And everyone was screaming the same thing. A right-footed centre-half at left-back. Your best centre-half dropped for 2 people that are not fit to start and probably shouldn't still be at the club. Eriksen in a game where you have no possession and your most creative player who likes to play through the middle as a number 10 shunted outright. Nothing made sense. And that is what has put question marks over Ten Hag. To get things so disastrously wrong in a derby game at home against the best team in the world on Sir Bobby Charlton's memorial, to get that so badly wrong has put massive question marks over him. And I agree with those question marks. I have been very pro Ten Hag this entire time, even at the beginning of this season. To add to the Ten Hag out argument, which I don't want to happen, by the way, is I'm not looking at United's losses this season. I'm looking at our wins. We shouldn't have won against Wolves. We were lucky to beat Forest, having gone 2-0 down within 10 minutes. We were lucky to get a win against Sheffield United. We scraped a goal against Burnley. These are the worst teams in the league, and we have been scraping by. And any time we've played a good team, we've been absolutely played off the pitch. This is after Ten Hag having had a summer where he was able to get 60 million for Mount and 70 million for Højlund. Whatever about defensive injuries, we should have enough in defence to be able to keep the worst teams in the league at bay. And we certainly should be scoring more goals than we are when you've invested 140 million or 130 million, 140 million on new attacking talent to add to what you already have. And the space between attack and defence is gaping. So tactically, we're number one in the league for presses up in the opponent's third. We're number one for presses and getting the ball back in the middle third. Yet we're not controlling games, we're not scoring goals, and we're conceding them more than we have any other season. It's our worst start to a season since 1986, 1987 under Ron Atkinson, which ended up being his final season before we brought in Sir Alex Ferguson. This does not bode well for Ten Hag. I do feel sorry for him with everything that's going on around him, but with the players he does have available, there should not be the performances that we're seeing. With everything going on at the club last year, he still managed to eke out the performances that we got. It was built on a good defence, but he needs to build that attack, and he hasn't, and he's invested heavily in it. Between Anthony, Højlund and Mount, we've got 240 to 250 million euros worth of talent that cannot score goals or create goals for other people. And that's on Ten Hag. It's a very worrying time. Ten Hag should absolutely be given until the end of the season. And I think we need to see Sir Jim Ratcliffe come in. We need to have a more intelligent footballing structure put in place for this club. And we need to have a fully fit squad to allow Ten Hag to try and enact the type of play that he wants to play. But the type of football he played at Ajax, we have not seen it at United since he has come. And we're now a year and a half into his tenure. And we don't know the style of play that he's looking to adopt. We don't see good performances from the very expensive players that he's brought in. And he's brought in a goalkeeper to play out from the back, and we're not playing out from the back, even though we don't have the defenders to do it. I don't know how much more money Ten Hag is going to need to be given in order for this team to resemble something that he can work with. But he's going to have to do it very quickly, and those funds aren't going to be available. So even if Ten Hag could turn it around with more money, I don't think more money is going to be available. Top four for me is out of reach for United this season. We're almost out of the Champions League. We're probably going to get knocked out of the Cup by Newcastle, given our current form. This is going to be a really, really bad season for United. I can't see us going on a sustained run of good form, given what I've seen. This looks like a team that is exhausted, defeated, deflated, confused, and I would say starting to question the manager's tactics. Now, reputable fan channels like the United Stand, who usually have decent connections and get a reasonably accurate and reliable source of information, even if sometimes it can be from Samuel Lockhurst, their Twitter went on to say the following, that a full-scale audit of United's football operation is in the pipeline and is likely to include specialists taking control of player recruitment and Erik Ten Hag sticking to coaching. So Jim Ratcliffe's faith in Erik Ten Hag remains unchanged despite the poor start to the season, but it's thought that he is likely to have fewer responsibilities. Now, what this is echoing the sporting director, where we heard some pundits like Neville and others saying you can't just keep letting managers buy players. You need a sporting director to buy players in the image of the club, and then you bring in managers to manage the players that the club have bought. So even if you do replace a manager, you can bring in someone else and you've still got the right ingredients for that next manager to make a dish. And there's a lot of merit to that. But at the same time, there's also been talk that United have been presenting option B, C, and D to managers as opposed to the players they want, like option A. And that's been happening. So is it the manager that's getting his players? In some instances, yes. In other instances, definitely not. So I don't know what's true. Are the managers getting the players that they want? Is it the board thrusting these players on the managers? Is it a mix of both, which would be even worse? So I don't know whether it's a case of wanting to relieve Ten Hag of the players he wants and letting other people come in. See, the thing about Ten Hag is that when he's been given the reins at a top club and been given massive budget to spend, he has spent it generally badly. Spending 50 million on a goalkeeper when you had David De Gea. Now, I believe David De Gea had to go, but the fact still remains when you had the Golden Glove keeper, a 12-year veteran of the club, who was a fan favourite despite all the mistakes he was making last year, I still agreed with getting rid of him. It's a huge move to then bring in your old buddy from Ajax for 50 million quid, having let this keeper go for free, and then for him to make the mistakes he's made. Now, he's done well in the last few games, and I rate Onana, and I think anyone that knows football would rate Onana, but it's been a bad start. Then you spend 60 million on Mount that you didn't need to spend. You spent 70 million quid on a 20-year-old with 9 Serie A goals. And you spent 100 million quid on Anthony, who you were adamant United needed to buy. 100 million quid. Anthony isn't good enough for the Premier League. If you were to sell Anthony now, you would not get more than 20 million quid for him. His attitude stinks. His ability is so monumentally one-footed. He is predictable. He is not an effective attacking player for United. And I don't believe he would be for anyone else. Maybe the Eredivisie was his level, because the Eredivisie is 2 levels down from the Premier League. So can Ten Hag be trusted with large amounts of money? Now, with Casemiro not playing well, with us having spent 70 million on him, there is doubts over Ten Hag's ability to recruit correctly. What have his best purchases been? Martinez. That's about it. Everyone else has been poor. Malassi has been okay, he's been average, but not exactly a player that's going to be in the firing line. He's a backup left back. But in terms of starting first team players, the only player that's been brought in that has been effective consistently has been Martinez. And Casemiro, while amazing last year, has been really poor this year. And again, that might be down to the tactics. He's been isolated in midfield. Who's that down to? Ten Hag. Mount, not effective as the number 8 in the first couple of games. System abandoned. Then he gets injured. Now he's back fit. Not picked for a month. Eriksen starts the game against City when Mount was brought in to replace Eriksen. And it's these kind of things that are making fans go, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is going on here? Other tweets that we've seen coming through is when Ten Hag was asked when he will be able to play the same football with United that he showed with Ajax, he said, never. We will never play that football because those were different players. This is also not why I came here. We are playing different football than I showed at Ajax. Because of personnel, essentially, that goes on to say. But you were brought in because of the football you played at Ajax. Again, a very worrying statement for United fans. They're kind of thinking, Jesus, man, this is why you were brought in. I mean, if you bring in a hip-hop producer, you want him to produce hip-hop music. You don't want him to start trying to play classical. It's like, it makes no sense at all. And in a third tweet that we have from the United stand. So the United stand understands that there's been no fallout between Mason Mount and Erik ten Hag. I didn't think there was, or that was being reported. However, at board level, it's thought that due to Mason Mount wearing the iconic number 7 shirt, he should be getting more game time. Again, the board can fuck off about who they think should be playing based on shirt sales. It's just embarrassing. But you spent 60 million quid, you gave him the number 7. He should probably be playing. An insider said the whole place is crazy at the moment. There is so much uncertainty everywhere. Boardroom, coaching staff, players, none of them know if they'll even be here next season, Erik included. The sooner Sir Jim comes in and has even 1% of control on the structure, it will be a godsend to us. So he's also having to deal with that. But to be honest, it's not been going well this season, and Ten Hag has not really come up with the answers. And he spent a lot of money. He's brought in more players. So he's got more Ten Haganites in this first 11 than he did last season. And even with the injury concerns, we should still be steamrolling these weaker teams, and we're not. So he still has a lot of goodwill and credit in the bank with me. I want to give him till the end of the season. I'd probably give him the season afterwards as well, because I don't think getting rid of a manager is going to fix this. If you brought in De Zerbi or Eddie Howe into this absolute shit show of a club, again with a mix of players from all different types of managers, it's still going to take them 2 or 3 years to turn it around and actually get the club in some way resembling an image and an ethos and a culture and an approach to the game that mirrors the manager. Ten Hag needs to be afforded that time, regardless of how scared you might be or how incompetent you think he's behaving. We cannot keep going from manager to manager to manager. It doesn't work. Even if you brought Pep Guardiola in right now with all these players and with that board, I still don't think Pep could fix this within 2 to 3 years. Honestly, the best manager in the world, the great Pep Guardiola, could not fix this. So don't expect anyone else like De Zerbi or Eddie Howe or Carlo Ancelotti or anyone else to come in and wave a magic wand and fix this. We saw how great Ten Hag was last year, and we were all for Ten Hag. Another thing about Ten Hag is his style of play. He wants to be possession, win the ball, transition. Our biggest wins last year against City, Arsenal, Barcelona, one more team as well, I can't quite remember. United averaged 38% possession. We were a counter-attacking team. We weren't a possession-based team. We weren't a fast transition team. It was counter-attacking. Soak up pressure, find the space, run onto it, use speed, score goals. From the few chances that we created. We don't know how to create for ourselves. We're counter-punching. We're letting the other team take responsibility for playing football, and then we just counter and exploit weaknesses. That's not really what Ten Hag was brought in to do, and it's quite reminiscent of volleyball. I'll also add that the goals we scored last year were 58. During Rangnick's season, we scored 57. We scored one more goal than we did under Rangnick. The only reason we got away with it last season was because of a very, very mean defence. And if Ten Hag gets injuries to that defence, which he has, now he didn't get the players he wanted, that's on the board. If we had Jean-Claire Todibo, maybe Antonio Silva, maybe Goncalo Inacio, maybe one of those players would have made sure that we weren't losing as many points. But the fact is, we're not scoring down the other end, and that is Ten Hag's responsibility. So to conclude this video, I am Ten Hag in. He did an incredible job last year. I still have faith in him. He has made odd decisions in the last game. His transfers have been questionable. So I would like to see a sporting director. While I do think a manager should have some say in the players that he should get, it has to be done with a sporting director taking the club's future into consideration, that when you buy players, you're going to have them for potentially anywhere 4 to 7 years. And with managers, you mightn't have them after 3. So you need to be getting in a profile of player that you know will probably be outlasting the manager and can still be useful to the next manager, maintaining a good culture of football and an identity that the club wants to curate beyond whatever manager they have at the helm. And I think there's sense in that. So there's a little bit of both is required here. Ten Hag should stay in. I'm all for him staying in. I think he should be given not only this season, but another season. And he needs to build this team in his image with a new board, with Ratcliffe, with Paul Mitchell in place, with Jean-Claude Blanc being brought in from Juve and PSG to help oversee matters. I think once that's there, I think it gives a decent base on which Ten Hag can try and mount a credible title challenge and to bring some respectability back to the club, which is currently completely absent. Once again, thank you very, very much for tuning in. What are your thoughts? Do you think he should stay? Do you think he should go? Why? If you think he should go, why do you think he should stay? What players need to be dropped? Does he need to be given even more money to bring in reinforcements? If so, whereabouts on the pitch? Please get involved in the chat or in the comments. Please hit like. Hit subscribe if you'd like to keep supporting this channel. You've no idea the difference it makes to content creators. So if you've forgotten, please hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit notifications so you can beat the algorithm and get notified when I've got new episodes coming out. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.